What's up, fiends? Alucard here. Today we are talking with actor, comedian, and writer R. Michael Gull, the star of the new indie horror film Cactus Jack. We're going to talk about all kind of things, but he has actually won some awards for this movie, including the 2021 Milwaukee Twisted Dreams Film Festival Best Actor, and the movie also won Best Film and Best Director. Um, so, without any further ado, here's my interview. All right, everybody, please welcome our Michael Gull to the show tonight. Michael is the star of the new movie Cactus Jack. Um, it's a doozy. um, yeah. So before we get to Cactus Jack, let's start a little bit beforehand, and let's start with kind of how you got into acting.
Okay. Um, I started first getting interested in it when I was in high school and did plays and stuff like that.
Okay.
And kind of put that aside throughout the I'm old, so we're talking late 70s, early 80s here.
Gotcha.
And throughout the 80s, I became involved in the music business as a songwriter, and I started a few bands and wrote with some bands and stuff.
Nice.
And then I decided to try to be a normal person, and didn't really work out for me. So I got into stand-up. And what you learn doing stand-up, and I was doing that full time on the road.
Mhm.
What you learn doing stand-up is that eventually you need movie credits or TV credits in order to move up the food chain, because people are, whether you're actually famous or not, people want to be in the room with someone that they perceive to be famous.
Right.
Which is why, like, the guy who played Screech sold out comedy clubs. He was a horrifying comedian. He was not fun.
Yeah.
But he would sell out when he would play comedy clubs because people wanted to be able to say that they met Screech
Right.
or saw Screech. So I needed credits, and I initially pulled kind of a scam and lied about having been. This is pre-IMDb, so you couldn't even check me on it.
Right.
This is when MySpace was the thing. And I lied about having been in a 1985 movie that no one's ever seen.
That's awesome.
And I went so far as to contact one of the four lead actors, this actress from that movie on MySpace. And I wrote her this sincere, heartfelt sort of, I had a small part, but you were the nicest person on set and you treated me like an equal and blah, blah, blah. And it was all a lie because I wasn't there. And I was testing my audacity to see how far I could go with this lie.
Uh-huh.
And as God is my witness, I swear on the eyes of my children, she sent me back a message a few days later saying, "Michael, of course I remember you. I make it a point to remember everyone I've worked with, no matter how small the role." And we became friends. And
that's awesome.
We worked together on a couple of films eventually. She, to this day, does not know that I wasn't in that movie.
Until she watches this.
Right. And so that actually moved me up a little bit. I started to get better gigs, putting that on my
wow,
on my credits. And then a couple of years later, I actually had the opportunity to really start doing them. And I was fortunate enough. The first film that I did was a short film that also featured Mark Metcalf, the guy who Niedermeyer from Animal House, and the dad from the Twisted Sister videos. And the maestro from Seinfeld, the master from Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and we are still friends to this day. He's one of my biggest supporters. He's just a wonderful guy. And I just started doing little indie films. And Cactus Jack was supposed to be just a little indie film that no one was ever going to see, and that's not turning out to be the case.
Good thing, because now everybody's going to see how incredible you are. So there you are. There you go. So
Okay.
yeah. So all right. So we're gonna get to Jack. Don't worry. So how did you get into stand up?
I was trying to start a magazine in 2001, and I took a night job as the doorman at a club in Milwaukee called the Safe House, which is like a spy themed kind of thing, very James Bond. And when you walk in the place, it doesn't look like a nightclub. It looks like just a regular business. So when you walk in, there's a guy sitting at the door, and he makes you say the password. And if you don't know and then he can open up a bookcase and you walk into the place. It's very cool. But if you don't know the password, you have to do something degrading to get in. And there's cameras, hidden cameras out in the lobby part, out in the vestibule, and everyone in the bar can see you humiliating yourself. It's very cool. And I took a job as that guy at this bar, and on Thursday nights they had an open mic, a comedy open mic. So I would go and watch, and I started writing, and I approached stand-up the same way that I approached music. I mean, if you want to play in a bar, are you a musician at all?
I do actually. I play bass.
Cool. All right. So if you don't just like buy a bass and then show up at a bar and say, I want to play in front of people.
Right.
You learn the bass, you learn songs, you maybe write some songs, you form, you get a set together, and then you can try to get paid. So I approached stand-up the same way. So many people who go to open mics and do stand-up are just like the funny guy at work. They're like, yeah, you could be a comedian. So then all his buddies come out and they all get hammered and they all laugh and they disrupt the whole night, but he's not funny. So I approached it like a musician, and I wrote for a solid year.
Oh wow.
Until I had a notebook filled with stuff. So the first night I went up to do stand-up, I was funny because I had been practicing it into a little tape recorder. And my rule was I wasn't going to try it. I wasn't going to go up in front of people until I made myself laugh. So I would do bits. And one Thursday night on my way to work to go work the door, I played back the tape and I chuckled. So I put myself on the list. And it was all of a sudden, oh my God, the door guy's funny. What the hell is this? Wow. And they had no idea I had been practicing for a year and writing material.
Right. So
I came out of the gate kind of ahead of the game. And within about a year after that, I was getting paying gigs. And yeah, stand-up is awesome. I love it.
That is awesome. So do you find that the stand-up helped you with your acting?
Absolutely. Stand-up is acting. It really is. Yeah. I mean, if you wanted to do stand-up and you seem like a wonderful, gregarious, friendly guy, but if you just went up on an open mic night and just started saying stuff you thought was funny, they'd be like, okay, that guy was nice.
Right.
So there's a bit of acting. There's a bit of, you're sort of amplified. And I decided on a persona that I wanted to do and kind of leaned into that. So it was all acting. Yeah,
that's awesome. And then I read that you have two comedy CDs out.
I do. Three actually. The information was I haven't updated it. Okay. Yeah, I also do stand up as a character as Claude LeBlanc, the finest comedian in all of France, and
Oh, I
he
gotta see that.
he hates Americans. He's bisexual. He's sort of like Freddie Mercury was. He's not gay. He's not straight. He's just kind of everything.
She's just kind of everything, yeah.
So what I do when I'm Claude is I will pick out like the most butch, masculine, like biker dude in the crowd, and I'll start flirting with him as Claude, and I will tell him how muscly he is and how much I want to take him into the men's room and all of this. And it's
Nice.
it's awesome. It's fun. It's a lot of fun.
That is awesome. I am French myself, but
So am I. So am I.
so I definitely need to see that. All right, so you did do a few movies and stuff before Cactus Jack. Two of them stood out to me. You did a sci-fi movie called Dark Nemesis,
Yeah,
and then another movie called The Scarapist.
I did. The Scarapist. Well, okay. So Dark Nemesis was it's. Have you seen it? Were you able to see
I
it?
have not, but it is on my list, and I'm gonna try to get it.
It's a lot of fun. It's schlocky, sci-fi, post-apocalyptic. It's fun. It's fun. The CGI is cringy and fun, and yeah, it was a lot of fun. And the Scarapist, interestingly enough, when Dark Nemesis came out, it got like foreign distribution, and I was getting like emails and visits to my website from like Indonesia and like Poland and stuff, and no one in the United States saw it, but it's fun. I like it. Not my best work, but a lot of green screen. There was a lot of green screen involved and things like that, but it was an awful lot of fun, and I made some really good friends. The Scarapist is an interesting film because it was written and ultimately co-directed by a woman named Jean Marie Spicuzza, who is married to the original drummer from the Violent Femmes, Blister in the Sun and all that. Yeah, Violent Femmes. Wow. Yeah,
that's awesome.
And he did some of the music for the film. He did some of the score, and made a great friend in her as well. We're actually doing a podcast tomorrow, she and I together.
Nice.
And it's based on an actual experience that she had with a really toxic, messed up therapist. Okay. And I play a guy who helps facilitate this therapist controlling this woman. And I drug her and I abduct her, and I'm icky and bad, and I hardly ever play good guys.
So you don't get the nice cozy cuddly roles.
No, the only good guy I think I've ever played was there was a local Milwaukee comedian who's brilliant named Ryan Lowe, who wrote an adaptation of Moby Dick, classic Melville Moby Dick, for puppets. And I played the co-lead. I played Queequeg as a puppet in this comedic retelling of Moby Dick, and it's actually really brilliant.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. But that's the only time I've ever been a good guy. I'm always a bad guy. I've typically always got a gun in my hand, and I'm doing something gross to a woman, or I'm a serial killer. I've been a serial killer. I've been a bad federal agent. I wrote and produced and co-starred in a feature film called New Day, which was based on, basically the storyline was that this guy had dropped his wife off at the airport at Dulles on the morning of September 11th. And 8 years later, he realizes she's alive. She was killed in the plane that hit the Pentagon. But not really. she's alive 8 years later. And
Oh wow.
it just becomes this whole thing. And it being my first feature and me writing it, I went a lot of times when someone writes their first movie, they will do this they'll try to do an M. Night Shyamalan kind of and you thought this was going on, but this was the thing the whole time. And I did that with this, so it's cheesy and it's not well done. Yeah.
It sounds really interesting though.
Had I had the money and the connections, it would have been a considerably better film. And had I actually not been, the problem with writing a movie like for yourself is you give yourself all the coolest speeches.
Right.
So I'm the bad guy in this movie. I'm the Fed who's trying to cover up what really happened on 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
And so I give myself these like long monologues about how everyone is stupid and I'm brilliant and I've fooled you. So it's just a lot of me talking, basically, and then running around with a gun. Yeah, but I've learned a lot since then. I've learned not to write my own movies, basically.
Just performing others. That's right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, speaking of bad guys, we gotta talk Cactus Jack.
Yeah.
So, all right. So, for anyone who has not seen Cactus Jack, how would you describe this movie?
Okay. A fledgling documentary filmmaker. Here's about a guy who has been living in his basement for the last 6 months and just never goes up, not even to like take a shit. Like he stays in the basement the whole time.
Yep.
And he's fascinated by that. He has no idea. He thinks maybe this is going to be like some morbidly obese guy sitting there masturbating, playing video games, and eating snacks. And he gets down there and he finds the devil, basically.
That's the perfect way to describe it.
And I look at it. It's kind of what's interesting about the movie is that we started making it. I first got together with the Thornton brothers in 2015, at the beginning of 2015.
Wow.
And they had seen me in New Day, actually, and I think saw my stand-up or something, or knew me from around the film scene or whatever. And they talked to me about this, and I was picturing, like how cool Edward Norton was in American History X.
Right. I can see that.
Like I was picturing myself being this badass American History X guy.
Right.
And okay, I'll do that. That's cool. That's the opposite. Jack is the opposite of that guy. Jack is an insect. He's powerless. He's impotent. He's a loser. Who just blames everyone else for being a loser. He blames his mother. He blames his father. He blames black people. He blames gay people. He blames trans people. He blames women. He blames Muslims. He blames Christians. He blames everybody.
I mean, this guy hates there's not one person this guy does not hate. Not one.
Yeah.
Like everybody. It's insane.
It's a bit much. It's a bit much.
It is. So how did you approach doing this like insane character?
I grew up. Yeah, I was born at the end of 1965, and I grew up in the 70s. Basically, were my formative years, and both of my parents, who are now deceased, were very, very racist. They were not woke folk. They were in my household growing up. My father and my mother both used the N-word like punctuation.
Liberally, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to a very small Christian school that they paid a lot of money for. And there were 0 people of color in that school. There was one kid who was like half Mexican. And that was it.
Right.
That was it.
Yeah.
And I didn't even like really meet a black person until high school.
Hmm.
And that kid became my first friend in high school.
Nice.
And I brought him home to hang out
Uh-huh.
one day. And it didn't go over well
Yeah.
from my
But,
parents.
Yeah.
So when I was going to approach Jack, playing him, Ronald, I kind of went with some of that. Like if my father hadn't been sort of like my father talked like that at home,
Right.
but if he had to come in contact with someone who was a black guy, he
Right.
wasn't,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
he was scared of them more than anything. So I kind of looked at it that way. And as far as like just the evil stuff, I kind of looked at it like I was being Alice Cooper. If you're familiar at all with Alice Cooper,
Mm-hmm.
Vince Fernier, the guy who is Alice Cooper, is like a Christian and like the son of a minister and a family man.
And like the super nicest
like
guy.
a golf playing decent dude. And
Mm-hmm.
but for 2 hours, he's evil. And I looked at it like that. Just have fun with it. Because nothing's more fun than playing a bad guy. Playing good guys is super boring.
Oh yeah.
You know,
Oh,
nobody
yeah.
wants to be Luke Skywalker. It's Darth Vader all day long. And
Yep.
I just kind of had fun, I guess, with it. And it was so gross and so
Yeah. So like at the end of the day, right? Did you just like you just
Oh yeah.
like was
Oh
it
yeah.
was it like a terrible come down?
After we would do it, after we would shoot for a day, it was just Jason and I in his basement for 98% of the shoot.
Wow.
There was one day, the first day of shooting, where we had a full crew and spent a bunch of money. He spent a bunch of money on it, and we didn't really get much. And it felt weird to me to be like that in front of like 15 people,
Right.
you know. And so he pared it down, and it just became Jay and I in his basement. And
Would that
we
would
would, yeah. And one thing that he did was he never told me what I was going to be saying or doing that day. I would show up and find out.
Oh, that's
So I didn't have time to chicken out. I didn't have time to rethink it or try to say, hey, maybe we should rewrite this, and maybe instead of 15 N words in this scene, we could go with 5.
right.
I didn't have that opportunity. He would just say, this is what you're doing today, and give me a little time to learn it, and then we would go.
Wow.
And that was really smart on his part, because it would have been a considerably different movie if I had had any.
Well, yeah, because I think if you would have thought about it more, I think you would have. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
It
but
would have been a totally different
afterward,
vibe.
after a day of shooting, we would just sit there and just look at each other like, oh my God. And everything that this guy says is stuff that Jason and Chris, his brother, found online that people had said.
Wow.
Like, yeah, and these guys, just so everyone understands, the Thornton brothers are as left as people can be. Like, they were Bernie's. They're not just liberal. They like want socialism if possible.
Right.
You know, Jay was a big supporter of Bernie Sanders, and he was a big supporter of Andrew Yang and
Mhm.
and things like that. So this is not a film where a couple of white guys are just seeing how many times they can get away with saying the N word
Right. Right.
or the C word or any of the or faggot or any of the. I mean, everything is.
Oh yeah, yeah. He literally spouts every nasty word in the book.
Yeah,
Like
and
it.
and and
Yeah.
what a lot of people also misunderstand. We've gotten a lot of. I mean, the legitimate reviews of the movie are typically positive
Hmm.
because they get it, because
Yeah.
they're people who review movies like you got it.
Yeah.
But a lot of people on like IMDb and Letterboxd and Rotten Tomatoes and different places, there are these people that feel a little singled out, I guess, and see a little Jack in themselves,
Mm-hmm.
and are giving it 1-star reviews saying this is just how liberals see the right. And it's not about left and right. It's
Hmm.
about a guy. It's just a guy. It's when people try to politicize it. I mean, there are political aspects to it, yes, but when people like take it personally and say it's an inaccurate representation of the right, of course it's an inaccurate representation of the right. And being offended, if you're conservative and you're offended by this film, I look at that like it's the same thing as Freddy Krueger didn't represent all child molesters.
Right. Right. Exactly.
It's about a guy. It's a guy, and he's
Hmm.
fake, and it's the extreme of how bad a person can be. So it's not some composition on and this is why Republicans are bad and conservatives are evil, and it's not that,
Right. Right.
because there are just as many evil liberals as there are conservatives.
Oh yeah.
It's
Absolutely.
it's just a guy.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, when we had the premiere, we had an online premiere because COVID. um, we had an online premiere in January of 2021 last year on inauguration day, which happened right after that was 2 weeks to the day after the January 6th happened at
Hmm.
the Capitol. And what a lot and people were saying, "Oh, how convenient that you're releasing this movie right at." But those people don't understand how long it takes to make a movie.
Very
Like,
true.
like this thing started in 2015, and
Yeah.
it had a
It is.
lifespan.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly. So yeah. So you actually brought up my next question. So, I think some people, like I said, the people that either don't like it or don't whatever, I think some people are going to completely misunderstand this movie, and I, I I get why one would think that, because when I first started watching it, um, I was like, man, is this going to be just this guy like just spouting all this bullshit over, and like for like 2 hours, you know what I mean? And
yeah,
I'm like, oh man, do I want to sit through this, kind of thing. And then I don't know, something clicked later on, and I was like, okay, something's gonna happen, and I got to see where this goes. And a large part of it was your performance, because to me, at first, when you meet Jack, he's very of course he's unlikable from the get go, of course, but but you're like, all right, this guy he's kind of a wacko, all right, and then it just keeps going like deeper, and then it's like, okay, yeah, this guy's a wacko, but this is like way beyond anything else. And so, uh, what would you say to people that don't get it? kind of is ultimately my question.
The people who I think the most complimentary thing that was ever said to me about the film, and the person didn't even realize they were complimented or the film. I was on a podcast shortly after the release, after the premiere, and a guy, and they were reviewing the film with me there, which is, don't do that. That's a lot of. I was so nervous.
Yeah, I bet.
And the guy gave it a positive review. This guy on the panel. It was a panel of 4 people, and this guy gave it a positive review. But during his description, he said, "I had to pause it a few times and just take a walk around my house and get away from it, and then come back, have a glass of water, take a walk, come back." And that's the point of it. You're supposed to feel like you're the documentarian and you're trapped in that basement with this piece of trash. And a lot of people who haven't liked it and have given bad reviews, who aren't the right wingers feeling singled out. There are, non-right wingers. There are liberal people who are like, okay, this is just gratuitous and it's too much, and you feel dirty, and you feel like, I've heard you feel like you need a shower a lot of times.
Yep.
And you said that in your review as well. And good. That's the point. You're supposed to feel trapped. It's not pleasant. It's definitely not a movie that if you're having buddies over, you're going to go, hey, I saw this movie. Let's watch this. That's not what it's for.
No.
And I'm totally cool with that. It makes an impact. It's leaving a stain of some sort on you. And
indeed.
And that means we did our jobs. And that's all I can ask for, is the more grossed out you are by it, the better I think we did.
Yeah. So I want to go back just a tiny bit. Were you initially hesitant to do this movie?
Yes.
And yeah, I can imagine.
Well, like I said, initially I was like, oh, cool, like the American History X guy. That would be cool because Edward Norton, that's
right.
Cool. And then when they were digging a little deeper with me, and they were saying, nah, not really. He's kind of pathetic, actually, but he doesn't know it, and that's what makes him even more pathetic. He thinks that he's here, and he's really here. That made me want to do it more, because, like I had said earlier, I've done a lot of bad guys, and the bad guys I always play have been like badass bad guys. Mm-hmm. Like they win the fight, and they say cool stuff, and they hold the gun cool, and they get to make a speech. This guy makes a ton of speeches, but they're all pathetic. The more vehement he is about how superior white people are, for instance, the more he's showing how inferior he is. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of a fine line playing someone like that, because bringing the pathetic along with the, what he thinks is badass is I don't want to say it's a hard job, because acting's not hard. When people are always like, oh my God, it took so much out of me after they do something, I'm just kind of like, really? getting all that attention and having people tell you you're cool, that took a lot out of you. Aw. But
Yeah,
it's kind of hard with the subtlety part, you know.
right.
Making
Yeah,
him pathetic at the same time is a little difficult.
yeah, I think Gary Oldman said something similar too. It was like what? It's just acting.
Right.
Yeah, kind of thing.
Right. It really is. You play if you ever, when you were a kid, if you ever played Cops and Robbers or Cowboys and Indians, depending on how old you are, Cowboys and Indians,
Right.
or whatever, or you ever lied to your parents about where you were, or you ever cheated on someone, or stole office supplies from work, or whatever.
Yeah, it's all
You
acting,
can act.
Yeah.
If you can look at your boss the next day after you took a thing of Post-it notes home from your job, you can act. It's not. I'm always kind of like astounded when people. I mean, I appreciate it when people say that they enjoy what I do or whatever, but I'm always like, you could do the same thing. It's just talking.
Well, that's awesome that it comes off so easy for you. That's awesome. Did you study any acting or anything?
I did a little. Not really very much, but it's
Dabble.
just yeah. And I've always seeing movies. I love movies. I love TV shows. I love soap operas. I was a huge General Hospital fan, like when Luke and Laura were the thing.
Yep,
I loved the whole Luke thing because of the development of the characters. And
Right.
I've always kind of watched movies and TV shows, not so much for the story, but for the performances.
Mm-hmm.
Like I sit here and I say acting is really easy, but then I'm impressed when someone does it really really well. So I'm kind of full of shit. But my whole acting style, honest to God, if after I say this, watch Cactus Jack again if you can stomach it. And think this. My entire acting style has always been a combination of James Spader
Mm-hmm.
and Ka, the snake from the Jungle Book.
Oh, okay.
If you watch Cactus Jack and you watch him while he's doing his "they're not even human" thing, it's Ka kind of sliding in on you.
I could see that. Now
All I'm trying to do ever is be Ka from the Jungle Book, and then people are like, "Oh, that was so good." And it's like I'm being the snake from the fucking Jungle Book. Yeah, it's.
That is awesome. I love it. That is super awesome. So, all right. So I'm gonna throw up a picture of you in character, so you for part of the movie you actually have the Abe Lincoln mask on. So what was that like working with your face completely covered and basically all you had were your eyeballs to emote?
That's I guess my explanation of that will again show how full of crap I am for saying acting is easy, I guess, because then all you're left with is what you do with your eyes. So and for most of those, we had a lavalier mic under the mask.
Mm-hmm.
And I was doing those with the mask on. Like they didn't
Oh yeah,
add.
I could tell vocally because I could hear it
Yeah.
go through. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And they did that intentionally because if he sounded clear and nice while he's wearing that cheap plastic mask, it doesn't ring true. So he needed to sound kind of crappy.
Mm-hmm.
So they did it like that. And yeah, you have to make your eyes intense and do whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of difficult, I guess. It was interesting because it's hot under it and it's harder to do physically.
Mm-hmm.
But in some ways it's freeing as well, because I feel like the character says the worst things in the film when he's wearing the mask.
Mm-hmm.
So it made it a little less scary and a little less threatening for me having to do it hiding behind a mask.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't me. That was the guy in the thing. It was the other guy.
Yeah.
You know.
Easy to turn on the other character. Right?
Exactly. Yeah. Throw on the mask. Be the devil. Take off the mask. Have a cup of coffee with Jay.
So did Jay after your days did Jay just kind of look at you like, dude, like what did you just do?
Kind of, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. It was an incredibly supportive environment.
Awesome.
Yeah. We definitely gelled. Like, are you familiar with like the musical work of Meatloaf?
Yes.
Remember
Actually,
Meatloaf?
Yeah.
Okay. So Meatloaf, all of his good stuff, like Bat Out of Hell and all of that, was written by one guy.
Yep.
Jim Steinman. And I consider Jason to be my Jim Steinman.
Gotcha.
Like you know, he jokingly, I hope it's jokingly, otherwise that's super creepy, but he jokingly calls me his muse and stuff. And once we got a rhythm for each other, and once he kind of got a feel for my style of delivery, and I got a feel for his style of writing, he was able to just write these things. And as I said, I would show up, read it through a couple times. He'd throw up a monitor. I was reading a great percentage of that stuff while we shot.
Wow.
Like, he had a monitor up behind the camera,
Mhm.
and I was doing a lot of reading of it. And I don't know. I feel I haven't. I've been in movies where I'm proud of what I did before,
Mhm.
but like, this is just like me doing Jay's words is, to me, it was just perfect.
It's magic. Yeah.
Yeah,
There you go.
it was just perfect. And
Yeah.
had anyone else written it, it wouldn't have come off that way. And I'd like to believe had anyone else performed it, it wouldn't have come off that way. Like, we just work really well together, and we have a feel for the cadence of each other and the rhythm.
Yeah. Very, very cool. Well, Jay seems like a super nice guy too. I've talked with him a little bit as well. But my next question for you is: what was hotter, the Abe Lincoln Mask or the gas mask?
Gas mask. That was awful. That was terrible. I hated it. And again, we did that, the dialogue, through the mask.
Oh, okay.
It was awful. And
Oh,
it was rubber, and it just conforms to your whole. Oh, it was terrible. It's terrible. And you can't even eye act with that thing because you can't even see them because you got the big like bug things. And yeah, that was tough. That was physically tough.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. I'm trying to come up with things to not give away the entire movie because I want people to watch it. But yeah. So all right. So yeah. Is there anything else you want to say about Cactus Jack?
I hope that people will see it with an open mind, not an open mind to the ideology
Right.
that Jack is saying. I'm not saying, hey, just give it some thought. Maybe black people aren't human. Maybe women are inferior. I'm not saying that.
Right.
I'm saying an open mind as far as the intent of the film. You know, we weren't trying to fix the world. We weren't trying to cure racism or misogyny or homophobia or Islamophobia or any of the phobias that Jack has. It is just a character study in what modern day evil looks like. And if you can appreciate, I think, I think, and you mentioned this in your initial review as well. I think it's gorgeous. I think visually,
Oh yeah,
he used phones.
it's incredible.
I mean, he
Incredible.
had like lens attachments and stuff, and he lit, but he used a phone for God's sake.
Yeah.
And it's two guys in a basement just trying to take the temperature of the country. And what people should remember, and some of the criticism we've had, is that it was sort of capitalizing on the whole Trump thing.
But y'all started making this way before that.
Before he even declared his candidacy.
Yeah, way before
we
that.
started this. So, I mean, the progression of his presidency certainly didn't hurt
Right.
coming along, but look beyond just the shock of it. I guess would be my advice to people if they want to see it. Look beyond the shock of it and take it for what it is. It's a new style of horror movie. Is it the best use of found footage? No. It's not the Blair Witch Project. It's not,
Right.
What it is, though, is a really well written. And again, anytime anyone compliments my performance in it, I have to deflect back to the writing. There's nothing I didn't improvise a word of that. That's all those Thornton brothers.
Wow.
Yeah, that's where the brilliance is. You can't, I mean, and if you were to, have you done any acting?
Not really. Not really.
You would kill reading those words with virtually hardly any acting. I mean, it was impossible.
Yeah, but it's so impressive, right? Exactly.
Yeah, they just wrote the shit out of that thing, and all I did was show up and act creepy and evil. But I would ask people to look at it as, look at it performatively, look at it writing wise, look at it as just a slice of a life of a pathetic person who is hijacked by hate, because that's all this guy is. His political ideology is fairly unimportant. What's
Right.
important is this is an abused person, grew up abused, went through trauma. His father committed suicide when he was 13, right below his bedroom. And his mother was crazy and abusive, and this is what you get. You get a person who understands nothing but hate, and they attach it to all these different people who are not like him. I don't know. I think it's important. I think time will prove out. I think it'll be a cult kind of a film. Obviously, it'll never be mainstream,
Right.
But I think it'll have a pretty decent cult following life.
Well, when I watched it, because I was gifted a screener from Bayview Entertainment, and he was like, check this movie out. I was like, yeah, all right, sure. So I started watching it, and I was just like, man, this movie. But I will, without giving away what happens, when the movie's over, I felt a big sense of relief. And I'm just gonna leave it at that.
Yes.
But it's getting there is the journey, and it's just, yeah. And like I said, you were incredible in this movie. You play the most evil, vile piece of shit that you can possibly imagine.
Yeah.
And as you can see, you're such a nice guy. So it's it's great. It's great. And I'm very glad I got to see it, and I'm very glad I got to talk with you about it. And so yeah, I want everybody to go check this movie out. It will be available October the 4th. It's on Amazon, deep discount, Movie Unlimited, Bull Moose, and import CDs. I
It's
know
also
Chris,
on Barnes and Noble.
is it okay?
Yeah, you
Also
can order it
Barnes and
from their
Noble. There you
website
go.
as well. Yeah.
So I'll leave links to all that junk in the description below. So go ahead and click on that. Get you a copy. It's also streaming on Vudu, I believe, as well.
Yes. Although I checked it today and it's still not listed
Maybe probably
on their
October 4th.
site. Yeah.
Probably October 4th, I'm guessing. Yeah. Yeah. And so yeah, that's what I got for you. Unless you want to add anything else, I'll go ahead and end the show.
I got nothing. I got nothing. Thanks so much for
All right.
talking to me, and thank you so much for the wonderful review.
Oh, no problem. Thank you for the insane movie. All right, guys, we're gonna get out of here. So remember to stay spooky. Peace out.